Hello children, today we are going to start our second chapter of history section of standard 9th. The name of the chapter is First World War and Russian Revolution. Now if you are watching channels like History TV, Discovery, National Geography, then you might have heard about world wars. World wars were basically wars between group of countries that were fought in the first half of the in the first half of the century 20th century in the first half of 20th century. So we are going to study about this particular chapter in this video. So this is the first lecture and let us start. Now as the name says, First World War and Russian Revolution. So we are going to study about two things, the First World War and second is the Russian Revolution. We are going to study about Russian Revolution later on. We are going to mainly study about the First World War. Now let us start. The yearning of the Western European countries from expansion of the empire and acquire new territories resulted into this countries going to Asia and Africa. Say yearning is want. Yearning is want of Western European countries. Now we know that European countries were such kind of countries, those who were ruling over the other countries. They were making colonies. And they were expanding their trade. Basically, they were trading. Britishers, those who came to India in the first chapter, we have studied about it, right? Those who came to India were basically traders, and same way other European countries also did. And now they were expanding their colonies, their territories and colonies into Asia and Africa. Thus, they established their colonies and expanded their rule. See what they did? They established their colonies. They expanded their rule. Consequently means due to it, result of, there arose a competition. Now, what was happening? Now there was a competition. This word needs to be remembered. There was a competition between European nations to establish colonies. Now European nations were trying to establish as many colonies as possible and as faster as possible, and in this particular race, the result of this race was the First World War. This greed of colonization. Now what is colonization? Colonization means rule of a powerful country over a weaker country. I have already given this definition into the first chapter. Okay, rule of powerful nation over weaker nation is called colonization. What they do is they basically form colonies or territories over there and they exploit that country. So European nation caused the economic, social and cultural ruin of Asian and African countries. Now see, Asian and African countries at that time were not so advanced like the European countries, and that's why European countries started exploiting them and they almost ruined it. Ruined is destroyed the culture of these countries, they almost destroyed the economy of this country, they almost destroyed the social system of these countries. The result of this on world politics was such that the First World War, Bolshevik Revolution took place. See, events like First World War, which took place in 1914, we are going to see later about it. It took place in 1914, and Bolshevik Revolution took place in the year 1917. It took place in the year 1917. Now Bolshevik Revolution is also known as Russian Revolution. Russian Revolution. Okay. Now before 1947 there was monarchy in Russia. Monarchy means king's rule. There were rule of Tsar. Okay, Tsar. Now Tsar are the Russian kings. So who was ruling before 1917? Nicholas. Tsar Nicholas II was ruling over Russia. But people revolted against him in the year 1947 under the leadership of Lenin. You might have seen this person's photograph many a times, Lenin. And due to that, the Bolshevik revolution took place. Bolshevik is basically a name of a party, and the members who are belonging to the party are called Bolshevik. Right? So, in the year 1917, this revolt took place in Russia. Right? And it ended monarchy. Okay, it ended monarchy. So, who was ruling in Russia before 1917? Tsar Nicholas II, and it ended this. Now we will study about Western European colonization in and Africa and Asia. Okay, we are going to study about it. See, the Western European countries wanted to expand their empire in Asia and Africa. See, they wanted to expand in Asia and Africa. The greed of colonization did not spare even their neighboring countries. See, they did not even left their neighboring countries. They were so greedy. They wanted to expand their colonies so much that they even conquered, they even captured the countries which were neighboring to them. Those were even European countries. See here, Spain has taken control over Netherlands. Spain took controls over Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, and it took place in the Dutch wars. Okay, the fighting between them was known as Dutch wars. This photograph, this picture, this is not photograph, but this picture is of Dutch wars. Later on, some of the province means areas, were captured by France. Some of the province were captured by France. When the Portuguese king died without an heir means without a ruler, a son or a person, a varisdar, Portugal came under the rule of Spain. See, they even took Portugal under their control because of the blood relations. So for 6 decades means 60 years, the monopoly of establishing colony in North European countries was with Spain. So Spain at that time was considered one of the most powerful countries of that time. Now why Spain was more powerful, you will be surprised to know, because Spain had one of the most tough, one of the biggest, and one of the most advanced navies of that time. They were known as armadas. They were known as armadas. Okay, and they were one of the best into the world. And at that time, the main conquering was done through the sea, right? And that's why Spain was the most powerful country of that time. Similarly, Italy and German states became the victim of greed of France and Austria. So France and Austria were again European countries. So Italy and German states. Now at that time you will be knowing that there was no Germany actually. Okay, Germany was unified later on. So Italy and Germany states became victim of France and Austria. When European powers were tightening their grip over Asia and African nations, many of the European nations which had become free followed the footsteps of England. See, many of the European nations which were becoming free, okay, they also followed footstep. Footstep means they also did what England did, and same way they also started occupying the Afro-Asian nation. Afro means Africa and Asian nations, and they started forming colonies into this all areas, right? So in this way they formed the colonies into Asia and Africa. Now we are going to see about the colonies in Asia. After standing grip over India, England expanded its empire. Now we know that England came into India, right? and they came as traders, but later on they became rulers, and now they wanted to expand their rule. So what they did, they started expanding their empire into Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Singapore, Malaysia. So all South Asian countries were under the rule of England. South Asian countries were under the rule of England. Right? England entered China also. See, it entered China, but due to the opium trade between England and China, see, England was importing opium. It was England opium. Opium means charas. Is it a type of a drug? It was imported by England. Okay, so there were wars between in the year 1839 to 1842, which were later on known as opium wars into the history. They were known as opium war. You can see this photograph here. The Chinese army and the British army, they are against each other fighting. Why they are fighting? They are fighting so that they can capture areas which are rich in opium, and that are better for the trade. China lost, see, China lost this wars and thereby lost 5 ports to England. After the defeat, 5 ports of China were taken by England, where England could carry on trade and thus expanded their empire. So what did England do after defeating China? After defeating China, it took 5 of its ports and it carried out trade into these areas. Taking advantage of China's weakness, see, Japan, Russia, Germany, France, Belgium, and America also acquired trade. Now, this other European countries, okay, basically all of these are not European, but most of them are European countries and other countries. They saw that China is getting weaker, so they took advantage of it, and they also established the political rights here, and they started acquiring it. So they also, in this way, China was defeated in the opium wars, and due to it it had to give 5 ports to England. Enormous oil resources in desert. Now see, in desert areas there were oil resources. Oil is petroleum. In the West Asia attracted Europeans. They also see, now this was a time when the industrial revolution was going on, so they saw about that oil can be used in future, and it was very important for them to develop, and that's why they established colonies there too. See, they established colonies. England, Germany, Russia, and America established companies, oil companies. See, they started establishing oil companies in Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain, in made efforts to take care of their interests. So this way, they started capturing the, you can say, the oil capital countries of the world. Now, this particular photograph is as on 1st January 2019. You can see this part, they were capturing this basic part. Okay, they were capturing this part. Here you can see Iran, okay, then Iraq, Kuwait, UAE, okay, Iran, UAE, Kuwait, Iraq. This all countries, Saudi Arabia, these all countries are one of the biggest countries and the largest producers of oil in the world. And European countries started establishing the rule into these countries also. Now, colonialism in Africa. See, colonialism in Africa. Now, Africa was known as dark nation. It was known as dark continent. It was known as dark continent in the olden time. Now, why it was known as dark continent? Because it was not discovered a lot. A lot of things were not known about Africa, and that's why it was known as dark continent. Now the Dutch established its colony for the first time in the end of 15th century in South Africa. See, the Dutch were the first people to establish their colonies in the 15th century in South Africa. After that, England and France established. See, England and France followed the of footsteps of Dutch and established a colony in Cape and Algeria. They captured in Algeria, in North Africa. The vast province of Africa seemed quite suitable for acquiring raw materials. See, Africa is a very very large nation, and that's why it was a great opportunity for the Europeans to acquire this place and get the raw materials. Now, why did they need raw materials? Then you might be remembering that industrial revolution was going on in Europe at that time, and that's why they needed cheaper and raw material at large quantity. At the same time, they also needed ready market, so Africa was a ready market for them. See, okay, because of which European countries compelled to establish colony, and that's why they established colonies into Africa. King Leopold of Belgium seized vast province of Congo. Congo is one of the nations, right? They established Congo and established rule. England established its colonies in Egypt. See, England acquired Egypt, some province of East Africa and some into South Africa too. France established its colonies into Tunisia, Morocco and West Africa. So you can see different nations are started ruling into different parts of the Africa. Germany established its empire in some province of East and West Africa. See, Germany started ruling into some parts of East and West Africa. Italy captured African province around Red Sea. Okay, Spain and Portugal also seized some provinces of Africa. A conference for European nation was held. Now see, what did they do? This is very important. Okay, this is very very important. A conference, let me highlight it. A conference of European nation was held. Okay, let me get a other color. Yes. Okay. A conference for European nation was held in Berlin. Berlin is in Germany in the year 1884 and 1885. In the midst of this competition, okay, so now you might have seen here that different nations, okay, the Dutch, England, France, okay, then Belgium, then England again, then France, Germany. So all these countries have started acquiring parts of Africa, but there was a competition between them. So what did they do? They decided to rob Africa in a planned manner, and that's why they had a meeting in Berlin. Okay, see, in the midst of this competition to establish colonies, different African territories were divided among the European nations. Okay, different territories were divided among the European nations at the end of the conference. See, okay, thus the colonial dominance of different nations, European nations were established over entire Africa. In this way, entire Africa was ruled by. Now, this particular photograph I put it. Okay, here you can see Africa is in the form of a cake, and okay, this is the Chancellor of Germany. Chancellor of Germany, and he is having a knife to divide it into different parts, and this all are different European countries, and they have decided to divide Africa so that there is no competition each other, and they can rob Africa in the most optimum way, right? So in this way Africa was ruled by all the European nations of that time, and they robbed Africa as much as possible. Now this particular photograph is very important. You can see here, this photograph is again a very important photograph. You can see this is from Partition of Africa 1885 to 1947. So after the Berlin conference, they divided Africa into different parts. Now here the colonial powers are given. The red color, wherever you see the red color, they are British. Green is French, right? Brownish color is Germany. Orangish is Portuguese. Italian, Belgium, Spain, and this were independent. So you can see very less part of Africa was independent. See Abyssinia and this side Liberia is some of the nation part which are very free, while other all parts of Africa were controlled by the colonial powers, right? So I hope you understood into this part of the chapter. So you have to read till chapter into 10th page, and we will continue in the next chapter, next video.